Amidst the jubilant atmosphere of the wedding reception, the mother-in-law took the stage to deliver her anticipated speech. However, what she uttered left the room in stunned silence. With an air of brazenness, she revealed a deeply personal detail: the bride's inability to conceive. In truth, my son knew well of her infertility, but he insisted on this union regardless. She may lack in one aspect, but she excels in her career. So begrudgingly, I consented to their marriage. The shock of her words reverberated through the hall, leaving me speechless in their wake. How could she so callously reduce a woman to her reproductive abilities and then flaunt it before our gathered guests? Oblivious to the distress she had caused, the mother-in-law surveyed the room with a smug expression, unaware of the discomfort her words had wrought. In the hushed aftermath, my name, Catherine, seemed to echo with a weighty significance. A 31-year-old professional in the dynamic realm of product development, I thrive in my career, contributing to several successful projects. Despite outward contentment, there's a secret burden I carry, one I dare not share with anyone. 5 years ago, I received the crushing news. I was infertile. The revelation left me reeling with shock and despair. In those dark days, I grappled with feelings of worthlessness and the loss of hope for any semblance of a future. Even my then-boyfriend couldn't weather the storm, ultimately ending our relationship. Overwhelmed by sorrow and frustration, I threw myself into my work, seeking solace in its demands to drown out the relentless echo of despair. Looking back, I realized I was merely evading reality, clinging to the refuge of productivity to shield myself from the painful truth. Yet amidst the turmoil, a glimmer of hope emerged. Through unwavering dedication, a product I poured myself into became a resounding success, elevating my standing at work. Convinced that marriage was now beyond my grasp due to my infertility, I resigned myself to the solitary path of societal contribution through labor. Then, a serendipitous encounter altered the course of my destiny. In a routine meeting for product development, I crossed paths with David, a man my age from a client company. Little did I know he would become the harbinger of change in my life. David, the son of his company's president and head of the planning department, and I swiftly exchanged contact information. Initially, our interactions were confined to professional matters, but gradually, our conversations transcended the confines of business, blossoming into a romantic connection. In David, I discovered an unexpected reservoir of love and kindness that I had long deemed unattainable. However, the specter of my infertility loomed large, a secret I dared not disclose for fear of losing him. Yet, as our relationship deepened, the weight of my silence grew heavier, gnawing at my conscience. How could I keep such a fundamental truth from someone who regarded me with unwavering sincerity? Uncertain of the outcome, yet determined to be transparent about my condition, I braced myself for the inevitable. Summoning courage, I disclosed my infertility to David, fully prepared for the possibility of his departure. Despite my resolve, anxiety gnawed at my insides as I broached the subject. To my astonishment, David's reaction wasn't what I anticipated. Tears welled in his eyes as he offered me solace, expressing gratitude for my honesty. His unwavering kindness moved me to tears, etching the moment into my memory like an indelible mark. Contrary to my fears, our relationship only flourished after that pivotal conversation. 2 years later, on a momentous evening at a restaurant, David presented me with a small case, unveiling a ring that glittered with promise. "Catherine, will you marry me?" His unexpected proposal ignited a whirlwind of emotions within me, joy mingled with apprehension. "David, are you certain? I can't bear children. Can you truly accept that?" Though David comprehends my predicament, the weight of marriage introduces a new dimension of uncertainty. I couldn't readily say yes to his proposal, burdened by doubts. "It doesn't matter, Catherine. I want us to navigate life's challenges together, to weather every storm side by side," David reassured, acknowledging my concerns with unwavering support. In that poignant moment, tears flowed freely, a testament to the emotions swirling within me. Since the day I received my diagnosis, I never envisioned this future. Yet in David's unwavering love, I found the courage to embrace it. With certainty in my heart, I'd accepted his proposal, ready to face whatever lay ahead, as long as we faced it together. "I share your sentiment, David. Thank you for your unwavering care. I'd eagerly anticipate the journey ahead of us," I replied, gratitude laced in my words as we embarked on the path to wedded bliss. With the proposal accepted, we wasted no time in setting the wheels in motion for our impending nuptials. As a woman in her 30s, the prospect of becoming a wife ignited a sense of urgency within me, eager as I was to intertwine our lives officially. Funny how swiftly one wishes to hasten time once the promise of matrimony is extended. The reality of marriage loomed closer, heightening my anticipation with each passing moment. However, before exchanging vows, we had to confront a significant hurdle: meeting David's parents. While our encounters with them had been brief in the past, this meeting carried weight as we prepared to divulge news of our engagement. Unfortunately, the reception of our impending union was far from smooth sailing. While David's father greeted the news with joy, his mother maintained a stern countenance throughout the exchange. When the moment came for her to express her thoughts, her opposition to our marriage was palpable. "Catherine, I cannot condone your marriage to David," she declared, her disapproval evident in her demeanor. Perplexed, David interjected, seeking clarity. "Why?" he pressed, prompting his mother to elaborate. Fixing me with a steely gaze, she broached the crux of her objection. "Your inability to bear children," she stated bluntly, laying bare the very fear I had hoped to avoid. Though prepared for reproach, the directness of her words pierced me deeply, leaving me momentarily speechless. "You comprehend, don't you? David is poised to inherit the company. It's only natural that we expect his wife to bear an heir. Marrying someone incapable of fulfilling that role is out of the question," she asserted, her tone unwavering in its refusal to accept our union. Aware of David's imminent ascension to the helm of the family company, I understood the weighty expectations placed upon him, particularly the desire for him to produce an heir. Yet David's proposal to me had been made with full knowledge of these circumstances. While the prospect of not having children with him weighed heavily on my heart, our decision to marry had been a mutual one, made despite these challenges. Thus, his mother's words struck a painful chord within me, their sharpness magnified by the stark reality they laid bare. "It was me who insisted that it didn't matter," David interjected, his defense of me unwavering. "Please, mother, refrain from laying blame on Catherine. Our choices should not be disregarded in this manner," he implored, coming to my defense when words failed me. Even David's father, visibly perturbed by his wife's harsh words, expressed his discontent. "How could you utter such words?" he admonished her. Despite their protests, his mother remained resolute, her stance unchanged. "I speak the truth," she asserted defiantly before excusing herself from the table, signaling an end to the discussion. Although our conversation yielded no resolution that day, it failed to shake our steadfast commitment to each other. Determined to formalize our commitment despite his mother's resistance, we opted to register our marriage with his father's blessing. Recognizing that waiting for her approval might indefinitely delay our union, we took the decisive step forward. "My mother's objections hold no sway over us," David assured me. "I'm the one who desires this marriage. Let's remain patient. She'll come around eventually." Thus, David and I became husband and wife, yet his mother remained steadfast in her refusal to acknowledge our union. "I'll never accept this. I refuse to attend any ceremony," she declared adamantly, escalating the tension further. In light of her unwavering stance, we postponed the wedding ceremony, clinging to the hope of winning her acceptance before celebrating our love publicly. Day after day, his father endeavored to sway her opinion, while David and I persisted in our appeals, pouring our hearts into each plea. Despite our efforts, her resolve remained unyielding. In a bid to soften her stance, my parents also visited his family numerous times, joining the chorus of voices imploring her to reconsider. Even some of David's relatives weighed in, urging her to embrace our union. Finally, after an onslaught of earnest appeals from all quarters, she relented. At long last, we could proceed with the wedding ceremony, our hearts brimming with gratitude for the collective efforts that led to this moment of acceptance. Despite lingering discontent, David and I pressed on with our wedding preparations and finally settled on a date, marking it a year from the day we officially registered our marriage, effectively our inaugural wedding anniversary. As the long-awaited day approached, a palpable sense of relief washed over us, culminating in the arrival of our wedding day itself. Filled with an overwhelming mix of emotions, I stood on the brink of tears, elated at the prospect of finally donning the wedding dress I had nearly abandoned. It felt surreal, like the culmination of a cherished dream. The ceremony unfolded seamlessly within the sacred confines of the church, setting the stage for a joyous reception. Surrounded by the warm embrace of well-wishers, I found myself enveloped in a cocoon of happiness. It was all thanks to David, whose unwavering support had guided me through moments of doubt and self-doubt, reminding me of my worthiness of love and marriage. Watching David, resplendent in his finery, exuding an aura of strength and reliability, filled my heart with an indescribable sense of contentment. Yet, as the festivities progressed and we prepared for a brief interlude, I caught sight of his mother ascending the stage, evidently seeking permission to address the gathering. And thus she embarked on her own discourse. "Thank you all for joining us in celebrating my son's wedding today," began the mother-in-law, her words slicing through the air like a chilling wind. "The truth is, the bride is unable to conceive, and I've harbored reservations about their union from the start." Her words struck me like a thunderbolt, freezing me in place as I contemplated the audacity of her disclosure on this joyous occasion. The once lively atmosphere in the venue dissolved into a stifling silence. However, she continued, undeterred, "My son was adamant, and so I reluctantly acquiesced to their marriage." In the midst of the hushed hall, her voice resonated with a chilling finality. Despite David's attempts to intervene, his mother clung to the microphone, forging ahead with her tirade. "You see, I may never have the joy of holding a grandchild in my arms. Can you fathom such a sorrowful predicament? Truly, I fail to comprehend his choice in a partner like this." Stunned by her relentless onslaught of cruelty, I struggled to find my voice as David grappled with his own emotions beside me. Then, with a callous laugh, she delivered the final blow. "Yes, as you can plainly see, my daughter-in-law is barren, but she's successful in her career, so I reluctantly consented to their union. Ha ha ha." Her laughter reverberated through the hall, a bitter echo of her disdain. As her gaze bore into me, she delivered one last venomous barb. "You ought to be grateful. This day owes its existence to me." With a smug satisfaction evident on her face, the mother-in-law resumed her seat. Her disgraceful speech concluded. Had there ever been a more offensive display? Stunned into silence, I scarcely registered the murmurs swirling around me. Urged by David and the venue staff, I was guided out of the hall, my mind a whirlwind of confusion and indignation. Once inside the dressing room, the floodgates of suppressed emotions burst open. Anger, sorrow, a profound sense of disappointment at the desecration of our long-awaited ceremony. Each emotion crashed over me in relentless waves, threatening to engulf me entirely. I never want to lay eyes on that woman again. I refuse to share a space with someone so callous, I declared, my voice trembling with raw emotion as I shed the wedding attire, opting instead for the comfort of my own clothes. "This is enough. I'm going home," I announced to David, my resolve unyielding as I stormed out of the dressing room, my footsteps echoing with determination. "Catherine, please, just wait." David's pleas fell on deaf ears as I hastily hailed a waiting taxi at the venue's entrance. "Take me home," I instructed the driver, my voice laced with a fervent urgency. Humiliated and incensed by my mother-in-law's public humiliation, all I desired was to escape from the scene of the ordeal as swiftly as possible. Our new home, just a brief 5-minute drive from the wedding venue, provided a sanctuary amidst the storm of emotions that engulfed me. Stepping across the threshold, the floodgates I had desperately held shut burst open, tears streaming down my cheeks unchecked. Never had I imagined I would endure such cruelty on what should have been the happiest day of my life. The joy of yesterday had swiftly transformed into the bitterest despair, leaving me reeling in disbelief. It wasn't a choice to bear my infertility, let alone to have it laid bare before a crowd of onlookers, especially on such a sacred occasion. As I struggled to compose myself, David entered. "Catherine, I'm truly sorry. Please forgive me. I never anticipated my mother's hurtful words. I'm sorry I couldn't shield you from her cruelty." David's voice was laden with remorse as he bowed deeply before me, seeking my forgiveness. He explained that as the groom, he felt powerless to confront his mother's deplorable behavior. Aware of David's inherent decency, I harbored no ill will toward him. It was his mother who bore the blame for this affront, not him. "Please, Catherine, let's return to the wedding. I've asked my father to keep my mother away from the venue. They're occupied with the guests during the dress change, and we still have time to salvage the reception." "I refuse to let this day end in ruin," David implored, his earnest plea reaching me through the haze of my turmoil. I nodded in acquiescence, choosing to place my trust in David's assurances. I couldn't bear to inflict further pain upon him, my staunch supporter and understanding companion. Moreover, the thought of tarnishing the reception we had meticulously planned together weighed heavily on my conscience. Offering David my apology for hastily retreating, we embarked on the journey back to the venue. In the taxi, our hands intertwined, a silent vow passing between us to weather this storm and see our wedding reception through to its rightful conclusion. Upon our return to the family waiting room, we found my mother-in-law surrounded by relatives, her exhaustion palpable as she bore the weight of their collective reproach. Catching sight of my presence, she approached me with an air of contrition. "Oh, Catherine, I'm terribly sorry. Can we simply pretend that dreadful incident never occurred?" Her voice took on a pleading tone, her head bowed slightly in a gesture of supplication. It was a stark departure from the smug countenance she had worn at the reception. "Why? How can you even suggest such a thing after the humiliation you inflicted in front of everyone? How can you expect us to simply forget?" My anger flared in me with her audacity, her attempt at reconciliation ringing hollow in my ears. The notion of forgiveness felt like an insult after the disgrace she had wrought. Why seek forgiveness now when you never truly accepted me to begin with? If you were so opposed, why not simply let things be? I voiced my refusal to acquiesce to her plea, my resolve unyielding as I prepared to return to the ceremony. "Don't be like that. I'm apologizing, so why won't you forgive me?" My mother-in-law's words hung in the air, laced with frustration and confusion. "I had no idea that one of your relatives was a key client of our company. It turns out, my maternal uncle oversees a significant client of my father-in-law's company. While I was away, he gave mother-in-law quite the dressing down. He even hinted at severing the business transaction. Thanks to my father-in-law's desperate apologies, the situation was barely kept under control. In that moment, clarity dawned upon me like a sudden revelation. Mother-in-law's apology wasn't born of genuine remorse but rather self-preservation. I was rendered speechless by the realization of her motives. It was then that David, who had observed our exchange in silence, finally interjected. "Mom, is that your idea of an apology? Aren't you disrespecting Catherine too much? And you're apologizing to her simply because you were reprimanded by a client?" David's voice, usually calm and composed, rang out with an uncharacteristic edge of frustration. My mother-in-law, taken aback by his sudden outburst, stared blankly in response. "Do you comprehend the magnitude of the pain you've caused Catherine, Mom?" David's voice rang out, filled with a raw intensity that echoed through the room. "You exposed her most sensitive issue in front of everyone at our wedding. As a human being, that's the lowest of lows, regardless of the circumstances. It's inexcusable. You casually brought up someone's health struggles like it was nothing." David's words surged forth, an unrelenting torrent of pent-up emotions directed squarely at his mother. He spared no detail, laying bare the hurt she had inflicted upon me, time and time again, wielding my infertility as a weapon. Today's egregious display at the reception had been the final straw. David's gaze bore into his mother with a mixture of disgust and disappointment. "I'm through with you. Consider yourself disowned if you can't accept Catherine as my wife. That's your issue to grapple with. Your words hold no sway over us. Our family's affairs are no concern of outsiders." With unwavering resolve, David severed ties with his mother in a single, decisive proclamation. There was no ambiguity in his declaration. He wanted no part in her life from this moment forward. As far as he was concerned, she was no longer his mother. "David, please, don't say such things. I want to celebrate with you. Let's not dwell on anger, all right? I won't utter another word. Let's try to salvage the mood and enjoy the rest of the wedding together, shall we?" His mother's complexion paled at David's words, her attempts to gauge his reaction met with futility. Despite her frantic efforts to placate him, it was evident that nothing she could say would sway David's resolve. "Today isn't just about me, it's about Catherine too. We're a team. We're inseparable. Disrespecting Catherine is akin to disrespecting me. I understand that you have no desire to celebrate our union, so I suggest you leave now." David's tone was unwavering, his words cutting through the air with an icy precision. Her apologies rang hollow. Mere attempts at self-preservation devoid of any genuine remorse towards me. David, with a merciless resolve, ordered her to depart, asserting that I was his sole family. "I can't believe this, David," his mother murmured in disbelief, her expression a mixture of shock and bewilderment. Clearly caught off guard by her son's unequivocal rejection, she found herself standing alone, alienated by David, me, David's father, and the rest of the relatives. With no allies left and facing the harsh reality of her situation, she reluctantly conceded defeat, her only recourse being to retreat from the scene. Once she had departed, I swiftly changed into a fresh dress, taking David's hand as we made our way back to the venue, united in our resolve. Though they remained unaware of the turmoil that had transpired, the guests greeted our return with a warm round of applause. It was evident that they had sensed the gravity of the situation and graciously awaited our return. I was deeply moved by their understanding and grateful for the comforting embrace of their warm reception. With my mother-in-law absent, the wedding reception flowed seamlessly. As David and I prepared to deliver our closing remarks, we took a moment to extend a heartfelt apology for the disruption caused earlier. With that, we successfully wrapped up the festivities without further interruption. True to David's resolve, we made the decision to cut all ties with my mother-in-law. David changed his contact details, ensuring no further communication could reach us. He even suggested we relocate, despite our recent settlement into our new home. Recognizing David's unwavering determination, I agreed to the move. The relocation expenses were graciously covered by my father-in-law, citing the troubles caused by my mother-in-law. With his support, we swiftly made the transition to our new residence. Once our move was finalized, my father-in-law took decisive action and served my mother-in-law with divorce papers. He, too, had grown weary of her mistreatment towards me, and the incident at the wedding was the final straw. Although a sincere apology managed to salvage our relationship with our uncle, who also happened to be a business associate, he had reached his limit with my mother-in-law's behavior. Consequently, she was expelled from the family home, left to forge a solitary path forward. Since David and I cut ties with my mother-in-law, we've been left in the dark about her whereabouts and well-being. From what we've heard through whispers and hearsay, it seems her disgraceful behavior at the wedding left her with no familial support. She's said to be enduring a solitary and difficult existence, scraping by in a modest apartment and working multiple part-time jobs from dawn till dusk just to make ends meet. Meanwhile, David and I are relishing in the tranquility of our married life. Though we hadn't been blessed with children, we find solace and contentment in our companionship. We're confident that as long as we continue to cherish and support each other, our bond will only grow stronger with each passing day. With this unwavering belief, we face our future hand in hand, filled with hope and anticipation for the life we're building together. I get what you're trying to say. You got married because of money, right? Don't talk nonsense. It's pretty clear, right? You're someone like me, a poor single mom. That's why you're still here even after your husband passed away. You're really annoying every day. I'm Mia, 35 years old, and I often hear snarky comments like this from Emma. My dad died when I was little, so my mom raised me on her own. Luckily, my mom kept working even after she got married again. So we weren't super poor, but we definitely weren't rich. Still, my mom was always happy and she worked hard for me. Because of that, I never really felt lonely growing up. I planned to start working right after high school, but my mom had been saving up for my college education. I really loved studying and wanted to go to college, but I didn't want to add more stress to my mom's life. She had worked hard to raise me, and I wanted to ease her burden. Then, when my mom suggested I go to college, I was thrilled. She got married at 23 and had me at 25. In my third year of high school, when she was 43 and still healthy and active, she told me to follow my dreams. She said she'd be more upset if I gave up on my future because of money worries. Her words moved me to tears. I took on a part-time job to help pay for tuition. And because of that, I graduated from college without needing student loans. After college, I got a job at a big company. I worked hard every day because I wanted to make life easier for my mom. Within 5 years of starting at the company, I got promoted to an administrative assistant and my salary went up. I was able to treat my mom to trips and buy her the massage chair she always wanted. 2 years later, my hard work paid off and I was promoted again, this time to executive assistant. During this time, I got to know the president's son, Ethan, and we started dating. Eventually, we got married. People would congratulate me and say, "Congratulations, Mia. Be happy." "Yes, thank you for everything," I said, deeply grateful, and my mom was moved to tears. She was incredibly happy for me, and it was a really joyful time. But that happiness didn't last long. Just 2 years into our marriage, my husband suddenly passed away. He collapsed at work, holding his chest, and was rushed to the hospital. But by the time I got there, he had already stopped breathing. That morning, I had watched him leave for work, saying goodbye tearfully. I never imagined such a terrible thing could happen. The shock was so intense that I could hardly speak. It was unimaginable that both my mom and I would lose our husbands. I could only imagine the pain of Benjamin, the president who had lost his only son. He looked so alone and devastated, just like me. I kept working even after I got married, and as the executive assistant, I spent a lot of time with the president, especially during the day, so I could see firsthand how sad he was. But there was one person who didn't seem to be grieving at all: Emma. Because we lived together after I got married, I quickly noticed her behavior. Actually, Emma wasn't related by blood to my husband. Benjamin's real mom died when he was just 3 years old. Knowing it would be hard for a man to raise a child alone, he remarried when Benjamin started elementary school, thanks to a friend's introduction. No, if something happens to my husband, all his property will be mine. What are you saying? Ethan is gone. Lighten up, it was just a joke. I thought a little cheer might help everyone in these gloomy times. Please think about the timing and situation. You must be upset that your plans didn't work out. Now you won't get any of our husband's money. I never expected to get anything from the beginning. Do you really think I would marry a man like Ethan, who doesn't say much, unless I was after something? Stop talking to me like that. He was irreplaceable. Emma seemed to think I would leave as soon as my husband passed away, but I didn't. Benjamin was acting strong at work, but I could see he was pushing himself too hard. So if I couldn't leave the house to someone like Emma. Plus, even though we'd only been there for 2 years, our home was full of memories of my dear husband. I wanted to cherish those memories for a while. You can't just forget feelings. The time I spent with my husband was happy for me. My husband once told me that Emma was more like a roommate than a mother to him. She was often out, and when Benjamin was away on business, she wouldn't come home until late. But my husband didn't want to worry Benjamin, so he didn't say anything. Emma was kind when Benjamin was around, but her behavior changed drastically when he wasn't. It was like there were two Emmas. When Benjamin left for work, Emma would see him off with a smile. I'm counting on you to look after Ethan. Of course, Ethan is precious to me too. Knowing you're there for him lets me focus on my work. Don't worry, just do your best at work. Thank you. Have a good day. But as soon as he left and the door closed behind him, Emma's smile disappeared. Finally, he's gone. Now, where should I go today? Maybe I'll invite a friend to the movies. You're going out again? Yes. Is that a problem? Oh no. Just remember not to bother your father with unnecessary things. He's working hard for you. If you say something, he'll worry and won't be able to concentrate. So just quietly study at home every day, okay? I understand that was their daily routine, and it seemed like Benjamin didn't mind it once he got used to it. In fact, he felt more comfortable when he wasn't paid too much attention. As a child, he saw Emma as more like his dad's wife than his mom. Benjamin was always grateful to Emma for helping out when he was small, which allowed his dad to focus on work. Benjamin's company was passed down from his step-grandfather, and he was really good at running it. Under his leadership, the company grew a lot. Now, he's managing 5 businesses, each making millions of dollars every year. So Benjamin was always super busy. My husband used to tell me that when Benjamin was a kid, he hardly had time to relax at home. Seeing him tired from work every day, my husband didn't want to bother him with unnecessary stuff, like mentioning Emma. Plus, Benjamin didn't feel neglected, so there was no need to trouble him. He was okay keeping his concerns about Emma to himself. That's just how he was, laid back. He didn't seem like a typical heir to a big company. Did you ever get mad about it? Nah, not really. I was fine as long as she was home. It gave my dad peace of mind, and we always had plenty of snacks. My husband laughed it off, never making a big deal out of it. I loved that about him. They weren't mean to me, they just didn't pay much attention to me. Sure, Emma would sometimes make snide comments, but I just brushed it off as typical mother-in-law stuff. She was often out doing her own thing, so we didn't see each other much, and her comments didn't really bother me. If my husband wasn't bothered by it, I didn't see a reason to bring it up. However, Emma's spending habits did bother me a bit, as I've always been thrifty. But since neither Benjamin nor my husband said anything, I kept my thoughts to myself. But after my husband passed away, seeing Emma splurging on luxuries while Benjamin was heartbroken made me uneasy. A man who was like a son to him had died, yet Emma showed no signs of grief. which made me even more upset. Emma, please try to support Benjamin. Even though he's acting okay, he's really feeling lonely, I pleaded. Why should I listen to you? What's your motive, huh? Trying to get into our family for inheritance? I never even thought about that. Well, Ethan's gone now, so why don't you just leave? I'm not leaving. Benjamin said I can stay as long as I need to. Emma gave me an annoyed look but didn't say anything else. She probably felt relieved knowing I wouldn't inherit Benjamin's wealth. But 3 years after my husband's death, Emma was getting more annoyed with me being around. Her sarcastic comments were getting more frequent and hurtful. Whether at home or work, I'm always with Benjamin. Emma seemed to think I was trying to manipulate him to get his money. It hurt to be seen that way, and I started questioning if it was right to stay in a house where my husband was no longer alive. I could feel the pressure of Benjamin's situation at work every day. Maybe it would be better for me to go back to living with my single mom instead of staying here and dealing with Emma's sarcasm. My mom is turning 60 this year, and last year marked the 3rd anniversary of my dad's passing. I had been thinking about my future when Benjamin suddenly collapsed. He was lucky to survive, but there was a good chance he would need care even after leaving the hospital. Things didn't immediately fall apart at the company when Benjamin collapsed because he had trained his successors well. However, I noticed a change in Emma's attitude. That man, God, he got what he deserved, she muttered. He's been so tight with money lately. What do you mean, tight with money? I asked. Our credit card limit has been reduced and our living expenses have been cut. Is the company in trouble? I don't think so, Emma, I replied. As it turned out, Emma missed her husband's 3rd anniversary ceremony last year because she was hungover from a wild night out, which Benjamin discovered when he checked the credit card bill. Even though Benjamin rarely checked Emma's spending, this time he did. Missing their son's memorial was too much, even for him. In his anger, Benjamin decided to limit the money Emma could spend. However, she still had enough for a normal life, so there was no need to complain. Benjamin himself mentioned that the company might be facing difficulties. Emma's absence affected him deeply, and before he realized it, things started to go downhill. I explained. Don't act clueless, you know it as well. All because we lost our only son. How does that justify jeopardizing the company? No, I honestly didn't, I replied, but Emma persisted. Even though he's not well, he plans to take it easy at home and live a long life. He's been telling people that the doctors said he could live to 100. That's reassuring. There's nothing good about it. If he lives that long needing care, it won't be a joke, Emma said, her nostrils flaring. Emma's angry rant about Benjamin, calling him dull and annoying, left me feeling uneasy. Who did she think had been paying for her extravagant lifestyle? Even if Benjamin's company was struggling, she could at least offer to help support him, I thought. And then Emma dropped another bombshell. So I've decided to divorce him. Pardon? Just think about it. The company might be in trouble. What if we end up in debt? It's smart to settle the property and leave before we run out of money. Are you going to leave Benjamin when he needs help? I can't handle taking care of an old man who's bedridden and broke. I'm going to take what I can before his will runs out and then say goodbye. Does that make sense to you? Emma's words, spoken as if she had a brilliant plan, filled me with disgust. However, just a week after our conversation, Benjamin's health took a sudden turn for the worse, and he passed away very quickly. He's gone too, I said, feeling overwhelmed. Just 3 years after my husband passed, everything seemed to go dark. I continued, my voice trembling. Benjamin's voice sounded so much like my husband's. Sometimes when we talked, it felt like I was talking to my husband again. Not being able to talk to him or hear his voice anymore was too much to bear. Oh, that man has gone to the afterlife. What perfect timing, Emma said, her voice almost gleeful. He still had assets left, right? His company didn't collapse yet. Maybe he died before getting into debt because of me. This means all remaining assets go to me. How fantastic. Emma's words, said with such heartlessness, made me furious. Even though Benjamin just passed away, all you can think about is money? I said, my voice shaking with anger. Ah, you caught on, huh? Well, tough luck for you. You're not getting any money from the family, Emma snapped back. I'd rather have Benjamin back alive than any money, I said, feeling tears welling up. Don't act all noble now. You're just putting on a show, trying to look strong for everyone, right? Even if you begged, there's not a penny to spare for you, Emma declared firmly. Even though Benjamin had passed away, it seemed like Emma cared more about money than anything else. It made me wonder how someone could be so cold-hearted. Thinking about it made me feel even more sorry for Benjamin, which just made my sadness worse. Fine then, you don't have to come to the funeral. Is that it? Only strangers are welcome, Emma said, her voice filled with scorn. I understand, that's how things are, I replied calmly, even though my heart was weighed down by sorrow. Emma didn't seem to grasp the reality of the situation, but I didn't feel like explaining it to her. Are you sure about that? Emma said sharply. Absolutely. Now that he's passed away, I, as his wife, am in charge, Emma declared with a sense of entitlement. So 2 days later, Benjamin's funeral took place quietly, with only close relatives present, honoring his wish for a simple ceremony. After the funeral, I noticed several missed calls from Emma on my phone, but I chose not to return them. Despite her attempts to reach me multiple times afterward, I decided to ignore her completely. Then one day, she unexpectedly showed up at my workplace. I finally caught you. Why haven't you been answering my calls? Emma demanded. Hola, Emma, how can I help you? I replied nervously. Still playing games. I got kicked out of the funeral home. You're the one who should have been excluded. I called you so many times on the day. What's going on? Well, you're not part of my family anymore, Emma. What? But you said only family could attend the funeral, so we had a family-only service. And then I asked Emma, who's now a stranger, not to come. No, the stranger here is you, Emma. What? When Benjamin got sick and was told he'd be bedridden, Emma served him with divorce papers. She probably thought since Benjamin was hospitalized, he couldn't file those papers. But I had already filed them, as Benjamin asked me to. So Emma is a stranger to us now, in name and in reality. Back then, Benjamin confided a lot in me. He told Emma that the company was in trouble and he might end up in debt. If that happened, they couldn't live their lavish lifestyle anymore. He suggested they live more modestly as a couple if Emma was willing to support him. But Emma coldly said, maybe it's better to split before you're in debt. 1 month later, Benjamin collapsed. Even after he woke up, he knew his health was bad. But he didn't tell Emma everything. He hinted that he might have to let go of the company and rely on her for care. Emma then suggested divorce. She probably wanted to divorce before he was seriously ill and get some money through a property settlement. But Benjamin, knowing his time was limited, had already donated most of his assets to charity and appointed new leaders for his companies, so there was hardly anything left for Emma. When he told her this, she was shocked. So, I don't get anything. Well, technically, it's not nothing. I left a few $100s in savings, I explained. A few $100s? That's hardly anything. Emma scoffed. Even though Benjamin had told me about this before, saying it out loud made me realize how determined he was. He probably didn't want to share any property with Emma. Maybe it was Emma's behavior after her husband's passing that made Benjamin so firm. But there's still the house. If I sell that... Oh yes, please find somewhere else to live soon. I'm staying with Mom for now, but I'll move back eventually. What are you talking about? You're practically a stranger. You have even less right to the house than I do. Like I said before, you're the stranger here, Emma, since you're already divorced. Plus, the house was originally inherited by Benjamin from his grandfather, so it's not considered for property division in a divorce. Why do you think you have a right to live there? Because when I married Benjamin, we legally adopted each other. What? So I have the right to inherit Benjamin's property. Benjamin left me that house. It's hard to believe, isn't it? The idea of adopting me came from Benjamin himself. When we got married, I didn't think much about it. I was going to be marrying his son, so in his eyes, I became his daughter. So I agreed to it. But after my husband passed away, I kept this information to myself. I was worried that if I mentioned it, Emma would accuse me of being interested in the family money. I have work to do. Could you please leave? I told Emma that if she needed to communicate anything, she should do it through our lawyers. I had sought advice from our company's legal counsel. I called security and had Emma escorted out of the company premises. I made it clear she wasn't welcome back. Emma resisted, but when I threatened to call the police, she left quietly. After that, she tried to contact me many times, but I ignored her completely. Her attempts to claim our fortune only led to complaints to our lawyer. Our company wasn't going under, and Emma couldn't understand why. She argued that if it went bankrupt, there should be wealth to share. But the company had been handed over to a successor before Benjamin passed away, so there was nothing left for Emma to claim. As for the family's properties, they had already been settled in the divorce before Benjamin's death. Our lawyer patiently explained that Emma had no right to any of it. Our lawyer, somewhat frustrated, told us that Emma had been persistent. Emma had thought she was entitled to a share of the will and had recklessly run up debt on her credit card. Now she was stuck paying it off, working multiple part-time jobs from morning till night. However, her financial problems were not my concern. Emma was 10 years younger than Benjamin. They had married when she was 25, and now she was 55. They had been married for almost 30 years, so Emma was entitled to survivor benefits from Benjamin's Social Security taxes even after their divorce. However, she wouldn't get these benefits until she turned 60, which was still 5 years away. Plus, she needed to have filed a claim for a division of the pension within 2 years of the divorce. I wasn't sure if Emma knew this, nor did I intend to tell her. I felt no sympathy or obligation to worry about Emma's well-being. Now I live in a home I once shared with my mom, Benjamin, and my husband. My days pass calmly and peacefully. Sometimes I remember my husband and Benjamin and smile, and sometimes tears come, but remembering their warm smiles, I want to live each day with a smile on my face too. Thank you for taking care of my daughter for a year. When my sister-in-law came back from her trip overseas, she came straight to our house. She tried to take my almost 1-year-old daughter, thanking me for looking after her own daughter for a year. I got really worried and stopped her, telling her that the baby was actually mine, but she didn't seem to understand. I left her in the yard feeling uneasy. What I didn't know then were the scary things she was about to say, which really scared me. When she saw I wasn't joking, her face went pale. That's when everything started getting chaotic because of my sister-in-law. This all started about 1.5 years ago when Megan, my 25-year-old sister-in-law, suddenly came back to her parents' home with a baby. She said, "My husband got moved overseas suddenly, but I'm scared of raising our little one in a foreign place. It's all so new to me. Oh, and I'm pregnant too. I hope our kids can be friends. If it's Kristen's baby, they'll be so cute together. It's weird to think of being friends with my sister-in-law," Megan said. Megan was friendly and talked to me easily, even though I was a bit older. It made me think we could be good friends. Even after I had my own baby, I lived in a separate house with my 30-year-old husband, while Megan stayed with her parents. It's great that Megan's place is nearby. We can hang out whenever we want. I thought we'd all get along well with her and my husband's parents, I thought. But soon, I realized I was being too trusting. After moving back in with her parents, Megan started revealing her true self bit by bit. "Sorry, Kristen. I have something urgent and can't take care of my baby. Can you watch her for me?" "Sure, but what's going on?" "My dad hurt his back. I need to get him some patches," Megan would explain. Feeling sympathetic, I happily took care of her baby. But this became a regular thing, with Megan always finding reasons to leave her child with me. That wasn't the only issue, though. "Sorry, I need you to look after my baby again today, Kristen." "Megan, are you lying to me?" "What? Why would you say that?" Her reaction was over the top, making me sigh. "Do you think I'm clueless? Your dad has never had back problems." Did I say that? I can't remember. She couldn't even keep track of her lies. And there was more. "Hey, someone said they saw you out in town." "Huh? Who snitched?" "No, it must have been someone who looked like me." "Who are you going to believe? Some random person or your sister-in-law?" Despite her attempt to convince me, her acting was terrible. "Take care of your own child. I'm done helping you." "What? Why? That's not fair." Megan threw a fit like a child but then stopped suddenly, as if she had an idea. "Fine. I'll make you want to take care of my child yourself." "What do you mean?" Instead of answering, she smirked, grabbed the baby, and left our house. Feeling uneasy, I talked to my husband and in-laws about Megan's behavior, but it was like talking to a wall. She showed no remorse or understanding. And she had a plan. One afternoon, while I was napping on the couch with my pregnant belly, I heard a baby crying. Is it from a neighbor's house? It sounds too close, I thought. Then my phone rang. "Hello, Kristen speaking." "Hey, Kristen, please take care of my baby." "What? Didn't I tell you I won't watch her anymore? Megan chuckled like my refusal was funny. It's too late. I already dropped my baby at your doorstep a while ago. I rushed to the door, alarmed. I found a baby crying on my doorstep, Megan. What were you thinking? I exclaimed. Well, you were being mean, so I had no choice, Megan replied, sounding gleeful as if she had just pulled off a prank. I told you, didn't I? I'd make you want to take care of my child. You wouldn't leave a baby on the doorstep, right? Stop joking. Where are you now? I demanded. Guess if I suppose it's hard for you to go out since you're pregnant, Megan laughed and abruptly hung up. When I tried calling her back, her phone was turned off. Despite my protests, when she finally returned in the evening, she ignored my words. This kept happening until I reluctantly started checking the doorstep and taking the baby whenever Megan called. Megan unapologetically said she was helping me practice for my upcoming childbirth, expecting me to be thankful. I'm not asking for thanks, but isn't there something to be said about attitude? I got more and more annoyed and stressed by her actions. This went on for 6 months until something happened a year ago. Going abroad for a bit. That's all Megan left before disappearing suddenly. No one knew where she went, but it wasn't surprising considering her habit of spontaneous trips funded by her part-time job earnings. My husband casually mentioned, it's nothing new. She probably went to see her husband since he was transferred overseas. We assumed she took her baby to meet its father. Our family, caught up in our own worries, hardly talked about Megan. Just before she disappeared, I went into labor 2 weeks early and was rushed to the hospital, caught off guard by the sudden birth of our beloved daughter. With all the commotion of an unexpected delivery and adjusting to being new parents, discussions about Megan faded. Before we knew it, a year had passed since she left. As my daughter's first birthday approached, our peaceful life was disrupted once again by Megan. I'm back, her familiar voice echoed through the unlocked front door. Megan, you're back from overseas? I asked, hardly believing it. Ignoring what I said, she went straight to my daughter. Thanks for looking after my daughter for a year, she said suddenly, then tried to take my child away. Hey, what are you doing with my child? I exclaimed, quickly taking her back. Megan looked confused. Come on, just because you've had her for a year doesn't mean you get to act like her mother. This child is really my daughter. Both of us were confused for a moment. Megan, didn't you take your own child with you overseas? What are you talking about? I left her in your yard, Megan said, cutting me off. It seemed like we were talking past each other, but I felt something awful might be happening. You mentioned leaving a child for a year when you went abroad. You left her in my yard, and that's what I've been saying. At that time, I had just given birth to this child and was in a hospital due to poor health, so I really don't know where your child is now. Shocked by the revelation, Megan's face went pale as she stuttered in disbelief. This is serious. We need to call the police, I said, reaching for my phone. But Megan grabbed my arm with trembling hands. Wait, please don't call the police. But how can we not? Please, I'll be in big trouble if you do, Megan said, looking really scared. I understood how serious the situation was, so I decided to tell our family about it. I called my husband and our in-laws to explain what was going on. But when I finished the call and turned around, Megan had disappeared. I was upset that she ran away when I wasn't looking. I felt really angry at Megan. After I called them, my husband and in-laws came to our house. My husband told us that there was indeed a baby in the yard while I was having our baby at the hospital. He didn't know much about Megan's baby and thought she took it away somewhere. He called the police to take care of the baby. We were so focused on our new baby that we completely forgot about that incident. Megan's child would have been around 1 or 2 years old when she finally returned. It's likely she confused my child with her own because they were close in age. After talking with the police, we found out Megan's baby was safe at an orphanage, which was a relief. I decided to let my husband and in-laws take care of Megan's child. But what worried me more was how scared Megan seemed. Her level of fear was unusual. There had to be more to this situation than met the eye. My gut feeling was right when I decided to take action. It looks like we need to teach her a lesson. I told my husband and in-laws. I had something on Megan that I never thought I'd use, but now was the time. It was time to show her. A week later, everything set up, I called Megan. After a few rings, she nervously picked up. Megan, your child is safe. You can come back home now, I assured her. Megan casually came over and rang the doorbell. I was so worried. I'm glad she's safe, Megan said with a careless laugh as she walked into our living room. But what she saw inside was unexpected. What in the world? Aaron and Ben. What are you guys doing here? Megan's husband, or should I say, her ex-husband, Aaron, was sitting on the sofa, looking angry at her. And on the floor sat her affair partner, Ben, with a sad expression like he was going to cry. This isn't good, Megan said, trying to leave our house. But my father-in-law, who's a big man, was blocking the doorway, stopping her from leaving. Megan ended up sitting on the floor next to Ben, getting a lecture from my husband, her ex-husband, and our in-laws. Come on, everything's fine now, right? The child is safe, Megan said stubbornly, puffing out her cheeks. But Aaron's cold stare silenced her. If you can't even look after the child properly, maybe you should give up custody and the child support payments, Aaron said, his tone icy. When I talked to Aaron, he told me that everything Megan had told us was a lie. He hadn't been sent overseas, and they had divorced because of her cheating. Despite that, Megan had managed to get custody of their child during the divorce and was getting a lot of money from Aaron for child support. Even if the parent with custody cheats, they still get child support. That's why Megan panicked when I wanted to call the police. She was scared of what would happen if they found out she wasn't actually taking care of their child. I explained to everyone. I felt really disappointed by Megan's selfishness. Kristen, you have to help me. I can't pay back the child support, Megan begged. But you're the one who left the baby with me. You can't deny that. Don't try to make excuses. Do you have any evidence? I asked calmly, while Megan screamed in panic. I showed her the video from my phone. After you kept leaving your baby at my doorstep, I installed a security camera for safety. It's important to keep the baby safe, I explained. Megan gasped, covering her mouth in shock. When did you record this? Ever since you began leaving your child at my doorstep. This video shows that you haven't been taking care of your responsibilities as a parent. Wouldn't it be better for the child to be with Aaron? I asked. Megan, biting her lip and growling softly, suddenly turned to Ben, who was sitting beside her, and burst into tears. Help me, Ben. Everyone's picking on me. But Ben, who appeared to have viewed Megan as just a casual relationship, gently pushed her away. I have another family, Megan. You've betrayed me too. Who do you think paid for our trip around the world with the child support money? Megan gasped, realizing her mistake. But is that really so wrong? She tried to argue. It's not exactly a good thing, I said firmly. Megan finally felt remorseful, sobbing and repeatedly apologizing, even falling to her knees on the floor. Please wait, I'm so sorry. Just forgive me, she begged. However, I couldn't let Megan off the hook easily. Remember, I won't forget how you've treated your child and me. You need to think hard about what you've done, I said firmly. Megan was taken away by the police, arrested, and her daughter was returned to Aaron, who got custody back. Now, Megan has to pay $500 in child support every month until the child is grown. Cut off by my husband and in-laws, Megan faces a tough road ahead. Even as she gets out of jail, Ben wasn't spared either. His wife filed for divorce and asked for compensation. As for me, I'm living a happy life with my husband and our daughter. Every day brings new joys and discoveries as we watch our daughter grow. My husband suddenly told me to leave our house because my parents live there. I was surprised and confused. He threatened divorce if I argued. Lately, he'd been distant, and I had my own complaints. I pay all the living expenses, $1,800 a month, but he seemed to forget that. I couldn't believe he wanted me out. He said his parents wouldn't be comfortable with me there. I didn't understand, but agreed to leave and take my things. He was happy when I agreed and left. I called a resale shop right away. My name's Emily. I live with my husband, Robert, who's a bit older than me. We met through friends and hit it off right away. One day, we hung out together and Robert mentioned he wanted to be a voice actor. His voice was really nice and I liked listening to him. We swapped numbers and decided to spend more time together. Eventually, we started dating without really talking about it. I was young and just out of college, so maybe I liked the idea of being with someone older and more experienced. It felt like a grown-up romance to me. My best friend Ashley was worried about me dating someone 5 years older than me. But I told her it was okay because lots of people have relationships with an age gap these days. I really liked Robert, and he liked me too, so I wasn't concerned. After dating for about 3 years, Robert brought up the idea of getting married. I'd already told my parents about him, including the age difference, so they were curious to meet him. With all this talk, I wondered when he'd propose. He ended up popping the question during one of our relaxed hangouts at my apartment. It wasn't the most romantic setting, but it felt like Robert, and I was happy with it. When Robert proposed, I said, "Sure, let's get married." It was a bit casual, maybe for both of us. After that, we visited each other's parents, but honestly, I didn't click with Robert's family. When we went to his family's house, it was filled with what seemed like old stuff, maybe antiques, but they looked like replicas or fake pieces to me. When we entered the living room and met Robert's parents, they were wearing expensive branded clothes and flashy jewelry. They seemed like a typical rich couple. It was clear our tastes and values didn't match. Robert's mother even made a rude comment about my appearance, which shocked me. But I figured as long as Robert and I were happy, I didn't have to deal with his parents too much. After we got married and moved into our condo, Robert seemed anxious one day. He asked about a woman in a blue dress at our wedding. I was confused. I replied, "There were a few guests in blue dresses, so I'm not sure who you mean." Robert clarified, "The one who gave a speech as your best friend. Was it Ashley?" Realizing I said, "Yes, Ashley wore a blue dress." Robert sighed, "So it was Ashley. Why are you so interested in Ashley?" I inquired, noticing his flustered demeanor. Robert explained, "Oh, it's nothing serious. I thought I saw someone who looked like her the other day, and it reminded me of her speech at our wedding." His sudden interest in Ashley puzzled me, but before I could ask more, he chuckled and brushed it off, retreating to his room. Later, Ashley called me with news. "Hey, Emily, my boyfriend's coming back to the US next year." Ashley had been dating her boyfriend since high school. They knew each other since elementary school, but he moved away in middle school. Since then, they wrote letters to each other. They reunited in high school, and that's when he confessed his feelings for her. I loved hearing Ashley's love stories. Despite her boyfriend working abroad for years, their relationship stayed strong. He'd been transferred to an international branch after working for a few years in the US. Even with the distance, they stayed close and communicated regularly. "Do you think he'll propose when he comes back, and then you'll get married?" I asked. Ashley laughed. "Emily, you always jump to conclusions. Just make sure to invite me to the wedding. I'll give a great speech. After your touching speech at your wedding, I'll need you to do the same at mine. But don't set the bar too high." We chuckled together over tea, knowing we could talk about anything, trusting each other completely. Whenever one of us had a problem, the other was always there to listen and support. Around this time, I noticed Robert was coming home later and later. "Working late again today," I remarked. "Yeah, you don't think I should work just because we're married," Robert responded. Even though we were married, Robert still pursued his dream of becoming a voice actor. He worked part-time jobs to support his studies, but didn't see immediate results. All the money he earned went into his voice acting classes, so I covered our living expenses. Because of this, we couldn't say much together. After a while, I realized Robert wasn't willing to give up on his dream for our family's sake. I couldn't shake off my worries about Robert working so much overtime. His long hours added to my concerns. "Hey, it seems like you've been working a lot lately. Aren't they making you do too much overtime, especially for a part-time job?" I voiced my worry. "I've got it under control. More money never hurts. Just focus on yourself," Robert replied sharply, shutting down the conversation. By this point, Robert had stopped using my name and only referred to me as you. When we got married, I thought he'd speak to me kindly and often, but after the wedding, his words became harsh most of the time. His once gentle, deep voice now sounded rough, likely from drinking too much. Aspiring voice actors need healthy throats, so I worried about his well-being, but he didn't seem to care. Gradually, he started avoiding me, even ignoring me at home. That's when Ashley called, wanting to talk. Since I had my own worries, I suggested meeting up. We chose a karaoke booth to chat privately. Ashley seemed cautious, picking a room where she could see the staff from the door. "Why did you choose this room specifically?" I asked. "Yes, I chose this spot because I wanted the staff to keep an eye out for any suspicious individuals lurking nearby," Ashley explained. "Suspicious person? Is that related to what you wanted to talk about?" I asked. Ashley nodded, explaining that she felt like someone had been following her since she quit her job a month ago. Even on her days off, she sensed someone trailing her. She chose a room where the staff could easily see to prevent the person from eavesdropping on our conversation. "Have you spoken to the police about this?" I inquired. "I tried, but since there's no actual contact, they can't do much." "What about your boyfriend?" "He's coming back in a month." "I thought I'd discuss it with him too, but I wanted to first talk to you, someone close by," Ashley explained. Ashley hadn't seen her stalker clearly because she was too scared. She didn't know if it was a man or a woman. So I decided to keep an eye out and identify the person following her. Through that, I discovered who it was. Although I couldn't talk to Ashley about my relationship issues with Robert, it turned out that the one stalking her was none other than my husband, Robert. He claimed to be working late every day, but he would actually wait near Ashley's workplace after his shift ended and follow her when she left. It was shocking to realize that someone so close to me was scaring my best friend. When I discovered the truth, I was devastated. The expression on Robert's face while he followed Ashley was chilling. He had this creepy, unsettling grin. I had fallen in love with and married this man. But in that moment, all the love I felt for him vanished instantly. I confided in Ashley and urged her to move as soon as possible. With the help of her coworkers, she arranged for someone to drive her from the underground parking lot to her new place. After Ashley and I took these precautions, Robert's frustration grew, and one day that frustration boiled over. "Since my parents will be staying here, you need to go back to your parents' house," Robert suddenly announced, convinced he was making sense. "Do you have an issue with that?" "If you disagree, I'm okay with getting a divorce," he added, starting to assert his position. While I had many complaints about him and had even considered divorce, I didn't think he could just throw me out of our home. After all, I'm the one paying $1,800 for our monthly expenses. I wondered if Robert even remembered that as I looked at him skeptically. His patience wore thin as he lost his temper. "Just leave already. My parents can't move in if you're still here. Why do I have to be the one to leave?" "I don't understand it at all," Robert exclaimed. But I replied, "Fine, I'll take everything I purchased with me." As soon as I agreed, Robert told me to hurry up and walked away. I wasted no time and contacted a local buyback service. The following day, they arrived at our apartment. Initially, Robert seemed smug, assuming I was leaving. However, his expression turned to shock as he watched them evaluate all the furniture and appliances. Once they finished assessing everything except what was in Robert's room, a staff member handed me a quote. "The total value is $22,000, they informed me. Without hesitation, I signed the document and said, "Okay, go ahead and sell everything." Robert, suddenly realizing the situation, grabbed my arm. "Wait, why are you selling everything? My parents are supposed to live here. How will they manage without furniture?" I pulled away from his grasp. "What do you mean? When we got married, you told me you were broke because of your acting classes. You practically begged me to cover the rent, furniture, and living expenses. I never realized you were that broke. I feel deceived. Remember the $1,800 monthly expenses I've been paying. From now on, you'll cover that. And with your parents moving in, I'm sure it'll be even more," I stated firmly. Robert's face turned pale, but he quickly tried to regain his composure. "Thought you could bring up money and I'd back out of the divorce? Who do you think you are?" "I've already found a wealthy woman," Robert said defensively. As I processed Robert's revelation about his close relationship with a wealthy woman, it dawned on me that he might have been referring to his stalker-like behavior towards Ashley. If that was his idea of being close, then Robert was seriously deluded. Ashley indeed came from a wealthy family. Her grandfather was a successful businessman, and her father now runs the family business. Ashley was the epitome of a perfect heiress, yet she never flaunted her wealth. She lived modestly like me and our friends, and nobody judged her based on her family's money. It seems Robert had learned about Ashley's affluent background and decided she'd be a better match for him. Could he really believe that wealth determined someone's worth, especially when it came to marriage? That thought infuriated me. However, I knew Ashley would never consider marrying Robert. Ashley's longtime boyfriend, whom she's been with since high school, is returning to the States soon. They'll probably get married, I stated. Robert was stunned to hear that he wasn't considered close to Ashley and that she found his behavior creepy. But I always walked Ashley home, he insisted. You should consider yourself lucky you weren't reported to the police, I retorted. But I didn't know she had a boyfriend. He's been abroad, Robert protested. They've been pen pals since elementary school and apparently talk almost every day. And unlike you, who's only been working part-time jobs, her boyfriend is a successful man recognized even by her father, I asserted firmly. Robert looked defeated as I spoke. Once the buyback workers had taken all the furniture and appliances, he seemed to regain some composure. I guess you're all I have left. You'll support my dream of becoming a voice actor forever, right? He asked, trying to strike a charming pose. I gave him a cold stare and replied, "Excuse me. I've already visited a divorce lawyer and started the process. Let's communicate through our attorneys from now on." Perhaps thinking I still harbored feelings for him, Robert clung to my waist. "Don't say things like that. Haven't we been getting along all this time?" he pleaded. "Getting along? Ever since you found out about my best friend Ashley being a wealthy heiress, you've been distant and started hanging around her. I realized marrying you was a mistake right after I said, 'I do,'" I declared. Robert broke down in tears, behaving like a little boy despite being older than me by 5 years. Seeing him cry like a child only made my already diminishing affection for him plummet even further. "I can't stand being in the same room with you anymore. Just stop it. Oh, and by the way, I informed your uncle, who owns this apartment we're renting, about our divorce," I added. "My uncle? You know he's strict, right?" Robert exclaimed. "Well, I've been covering all the rent and living expenses until now. So when I mentioned that you might struggle to afford it if I leave, he said he'd find work for you. That also means I won't be able to continue my voice acting studies," I explained. "You hardly ever practice anyway. Maybe it's time to face reality. And if you try to approach Ashley again, I'll report you to the police right away. Goodbye," I stated firmly. I left the house with a firm resolve to never look back. My immediate plan was to return to my parents' house. But I also considered finding a new place closer to my job if the opportunity arose. As for Robert, it appeared his uncle followed through on his promise and found him a job at his company. Soon after, Robert's parents, who had been planning to rely on their son's marriage to the wealthy heiress, also moved into the apartment and began working for the uncle's company. It seemed like taking advantage of others ran in the family. I felt relieved to have escaped from such a toxic environment. While age difference didn't matter much to me, I realized the importance of choosing my next partner more carefully. On a brighter note, after everything with Robert had settled, I received a wedding invitation from Ashley herself. She introduced me to her longtime boyfriend, and I genuinely wished them all the happiness in the world. While my first marriage didn't work out, I hoped that Ashley's marriage would be a lasting and happy